Hi, I'm Regular Zach, and this is my Aetherdrift set review for all the multicolored cards in the set. Again, we are talking only about the limited format, so that's sealed and draft. And we are rating everything on a regular rating scale, A to F. So A's are bombs, they're awesome, you want to pick these early, and they're just the best cards in your deck. B's are really strong cards that you're happy to have in your deck, and these are cards that actively push you into those colors. C cards are all solid. You like them, they're good, they fit in your deck. Most of your deck is comprised of C level cards. D cards are pretty bad. You really never want to play these cards, but sometimes you kind of have to. And then F's are horrible. You should never put these cards in your deck under any circumstance. They are just atrocious. With this multicolor set review, we're going to be grouping everything in kind of the clusters of colors just to make it a little bit easier to think about the actual strategies we're going for. So we're going to start off with Voyage Home, which is 5 white blue for a sorcery. It has affinity for artifacts. Nice. It's also uncommon, and it says you draw 3 cards and gain 3 life. Okay, so 7 mana, draw 3 cards, gain 3 life. Obviously, that's so expensive. But 3 mana or 2 mana? That seems pretty great. This is another one of those great, artifact payoffs. And I think all of the affinity for artifact cards, almost all of them, are really strong. And this is no exception. I think having 5 artifacts doesn't seem like it's going to be that insane to do, but I'm going to assume we'll probably have 4. So 3 mana, draw 3 cards, gain 3 life. I don't know. That sounds like a B plus to me. I like this card a lot. I'm actively looking to be in this deck. I think it's going to be quite strong. So that's just super great. All right. Moving right along, we have Guidelight Pathmaker, which is 4 white blue for an artifact vehicle at uncommon. It's a 6/5 with vigilance, and says when this vehicle enters, you may search your library for an artifact card and reveal it. Put it onto the battlefield if it's mana value 2 or less. Otherwise, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And it has Crew 2. All right, this is pretty expensive. So a 6 mana, 6/5 vigilance vehicle. Obviously, it's got fine stats for the actual mana you're putting into this, but tutoring up a card, but specifically being able to put something of mana value 2 or less onto the battlefield, and almost definitely it's going to be a card that you can crew this with. That's the whole point, right? You play this, you go get something to crew it from your deck, and you just put it on the battlefield, and then this immediately starts blocking. I like that. I think that's pretty good, but I'm not going to be obsessed with putting this in my deck. I think this is probably a C plus. It's a good card, but if I see it, is this going to be a card that's pulling me into the white deck? I think more of, or the white-blue deck, sorry. I think more of the affinity for artifacts cards that we just saw are closer to that. So this one seems good, but I'm not overly obsessed. Next up, we have Medicant Core Guidelight. So this is the legendary creature. All the different color pairs have legendary creatures at rare or mythic rare. This one happens to be at rare. It is white and a blue for a star 3 legendary artifact creature robot. It says Medicant's power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. Okay, so it's a 1/3, just starting us off. And it has Start Your Engines. Bam. 2 mana, Start Your Engines. We've already been talking about this the whole review. We really like that a lot. I like getting my engine started as soon as I possibly can. And this one's sweet. It also has max speed. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may pay 1. If you do, copy it. What? So you're just copying all of your artifact spells? That is insane. Actually insane. I think this card is... I like that we're mixing both the artifacts and getting our max speed, because this card is a huge payoff for that. This is... You have to, obviously have the deck. So this is an A-level card for sure. But you do need to actually build around this. You want to have artifacts in your deck, because if you don't have enough artifacts, then you don't get to copy them. So that's one thing. But being able to get extra copies of cards for 1 mana, that's so strong. I like this card a lot. This is an A for sure. Last white-blue card is Riptide Gear Hulk. We have a cycle of multicolored Geared Hulks in this. They're all mythic rare, and this one costs 1 white, blue for a 2/5 artifact creature construct. It has double strike and prowess. Already, those keywords are awesome. All the gear hooks have 2 keywords, but these ones are like really aggressive for like a white blue thing. Prowess and double strike. That's already awesome. It also has an enters the battlefield effect. When this creature enters, for each opponent, put up to 1 target non-land permanent that opponent controls on top of their owner's library, third from the top. Okay, so this does a Teferi thing where you take a non-land permanent, put it third from the top, and they have to like wait to get it back. This thing's busted. This is so strong. You just like bounce their biggest thing. It's going to take them just years, it feels like, to be able to draw that card again. And then next turn you get a Kraken. Maybe you play in your Voyage Home, or you play a couple instants or sorceries. Or not even those instants and sorceries. You just need non-creature spells. So any vehicle triggers this card to beef it up. You're dealing at like, 4 damage, but probably 6 to 8 damage with this thing. Like... yeah. The worst thing about it is the mana cost, but we do have common like dual lands in this set, so this card's an A+. Like, I'm super happy to have this card. You do get like cemented into that like color combination just because of the mana cost, but this is a payoff for doing that. Like, this is a really strong card. Oh, I like this a lot. A+. All right, next up we have the white-black card. So this is Embalmed Ascendant, which is 1 white-black for a 1/2 creature zombie at uncommon. It has Start Your Engines. And it says, when this creature enters, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And at max speed, it has an ability of whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Sweet. So this is just like a Blood Artist at max speed. And it's like a 3-mana 1/2 body that brings a 2/2 with it, no matter what speed you're at. This is a B. Like, this is a great card. I'm super happy to have something like this in my deck. And any card that brings another piece of cardboard or gives you a card to draw or makes your opponent lose a card, like, that is what Limited is all about. And this is awesome. And then at the end of the game, you just start draining them for a bunch. Like, white-black already wants to have max speed. Like, that's what the whole color pair is doing. So this card seems awesome. This is a B level card, maybe even a B+. I like this a lot. Next up, we have Dune Drifter, which is X white-black for a 3/3 artifact vehicle at uncommon. It says, when this vehicle enters, return target artifact or creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay. And it has crew too. So this is a vehicle reanimator. And that is awesome. This thing is so much fun. I do, like, we have a couple reanimation spells, right? There's one in white, there's one in black. This one is white-black, but the fact that you also get a vehicle out of it, so like early game, it just doesn't sit in your hand. And if your best things get exiled, or like you don't have anything in your graveyard yet, you could still use this card. Yeah, 2 mana for a 3/3 crew 2. Maybe we're not super excited about that, but that's like the worst case scenario, right? And being able to scale up with whatever we want, this can get itself like a pilot to be able to crew itself, so it starts attacking. Yeah, this is great. Like, obviously, we're not going to be reanimating huge things unless we're like, it's way late in the game. But obviously, this isn't the card we're trying to reanimate the giant, like, 10 mana things, But I like this a lot. I think this fits really well. It's another B level card. Like, I'm stoked to have this. Next up, we have Zahur Glory's Past, which is white-black for a 3/2 legendary creature zombie cat warrior at rare. It has Start Your Engines. Boom! 2 mana Start Your Engines. Already love this card. It has an activated ability, sacrifice another creature, surveil 1, and activate only once each turn. Sweet. It also has max speed. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. All right, so this is a sack outlet that lets us like dump things into our graveyard if we need. We also have card selection. And at max speed, whenever we lose a non-token creature, we get another one. And we can sacrifice them to get them. Like, this is great. This is like a B+. Like, this is really aggressive. I like the 3 power, so it like is able to crew all the stuff that we want it to crew. I don't know. I like all these white-black cards so far. This is sweet. I think this is going to be a deck that I'm really excited to be playing. Moving on, we have Ketchamoose, the New Dawn. It is 1 white-black for a 4/4 legendary creature god at mythic rare. It has 3 keywords. It has a menace, lifelink, and indestructible. It also says Ketchamoose can't attack or block unless there are 7 or more cards in exile. Okay. What? It has another ability. Whenever one or more cards are put into exile from graveyards and or the battlefield during your turn, you may draw a card and lose one life. What? This is weird. This is... Is this ever gonna attack? Like, 7 cards in exile. Like, you have to have, like, a huge focus on that. We don't have... Like, we have some things. There's, like, some black and green stuff that will, like, exile cards from your graveyard. There's, like, a green vehicle that does that. But, like... If we don't have control over making sure we have all the cards in exile, this seems pretty bad. The best white common removal spell exiles, so that's good. But you're not going to be able to exile 7 things. Like but just the enchantment of like 3 mana whenever one or more cards are put into exile from the graveyard or battlefield, you draw a card and lose a life. That's pretty good. Like your removal spell is just like exile a thing, draw a card. Okay. But do we want to spend 3 mana on that? I can't really tell. I don't feel like we have enough exile stuff in this set. I would be really hesitant to try to play this card. I like all the other white-black stuff, but this one seems like it just won't do enough. Like maybe there's an exile deck that comes out or something, but this kind of looks like a D, right? Like, I don't think it's an F. I don't think it's impossible to play. It's very strong. It has an ability, even if it isn't really a creature. But, like, besides that, I don't know. If you ever make this a creature, it's awesome. It's amazing. But it seems like there's so many hoops to jump through. And I don't know if a 3 mana enchantment that when you exile stuff, you draw a card. D. I'm sorry, Catcher Moose, but like, wow. How the gods have fallen. That's brutal. All right. Next up is the blue-black cards. So we have Haunt the Network, which is 3 blue-black for a sorcery at uncommon. It says choose target opponent. Create 2 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. Then the chosen player loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Huh. Okay. 5 mana is a lot for 2 bodies. But they're 2 1/1 flyers. If this card, like the Christmas land is this card actually kills your opponent, right? Maybe we have 3 other artifacts on the battlefield. Like that might be a relatively easy thing to do. So we have like 3 artifacts plus the 2. The life swing is like they lose 5, you gain 5. So that's a 10-point life swing. I don't know. This almost feels like a trap. I don't think you want more than one of these cards. I think I had this at like a B-, but I'm gonna move it down to like a C+. I think it's totally cool and good, but I don't know if we have to take this highly, and it'll just like slip into your deck. If the white-blue deck ends up like, I think they have a little bit more artifact stuff going on, so if we just get to, I don't know, splash this card, that'd be kind of fun, but I think that if it's not really killing your opponent, I don't know, it seems like a lot. I don't know. C+. Next up, we have Haunted Hellride, which is 1 blue-red for a 3/3 artifact vehicle at uncommon. It says, whenever you attack target creature you control, gets +1/+0 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. Untap it, and it has Crew 1. All right. There's a black card we thought was doing this, but this is the actual card that's actually doing it, right? So we're used to this whenever, you attack, one of your creatures gets... +1/+0 and Death Touch. It's nice. We have a lot of cards that usually say if you attack with one specific creature, then you get Death Touch, but otherwise you don't. But this one doesn't care. You can attack with as many as you want, and whichever one you want to get through, you give it Death Touch, so nobody wants to block it. That's pretty sweet. It also untaps that creature, so that like even if like maybe you crew this thing, it attacks, you give it Death Touch, you untap it, you can crew it to block. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, this seems pretty good. I mean, I don't know how amazing that ability is really going to be. It will probably sneak up on me, but I'm still going to give like a C+. Like it's pretty cool, but I think it might be a little underwhelming. But it does have the workings and the makings of being like a better version of this card. So yeah, C+. I think, okay, that's cool. Next up, we have Winter Cursed Rider, which is blue-black for a 3/2 legendary creature, human warlock at rare. It has Ward pay 2 life. All right, so if you target this thing, you have to pay 2 life. That's good. It also says artifacts you control have ward pay 2 life. Oh, okay. So if you target any of my artifacts, that's a lot of things. And then it also has an exhaust ability. You can pay 2 blue-black and tap it to exile X artifact cards from your graveyard. Each other non-artifact creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Oh. So this is just like a board wipe thing that you get to choose what the board wipe is. Like, yes, you have to make sure you have a bunch of artifacts in your graveyard, but blue has a good number of those, so does black. Like, our black common removal spell is an artifact that does go to the graveyard, so we'd be wanting as many of those baubles as we can possibly get in this deck. And then we just get to choose how many things we want to kill, and I mean, obviously it doesn't kill like artifacts that our opponents have, but that's fine. It doesn't kill winter. You only get to do it once, but this seems strong. As long as you don't turn on their Ketcher Moose. Actually, no, this would kill a Ketcher Moose. No, this is sweet. One of the ways to get a bunch of artifacts in exile for Ketcher Moose or whatever. But no, I like this a lot. This is like an A. You do have to build around it to make sure you have artifacts, but that's not going to be hard to do. I like this a lot. Next up is Oil Deep Gear Hulk, which is blue, black for a 4/4 artifact creature construct at Mythic Rare. It has lifelink and Ward 1. Ward 1 is a lot more annoying than you think, so that's still... It doesn't always look like it's real text, but it definitely is real text. When this creature enters, look at target player's hand. You may choose a card from it. If you do, that player discards that card, then draws a card. Okay. It is hard to cast, but a 4/4 lifelink is like a great body to have. It's hard to target, and you get to look at their hand and decide whether you want to discard something. Like, we don't have to, right? We get to look at their hand. If there's something we're scared of, they have to discard it. They do get to draw another card, so that's the part that's like, oh man, that's annoying. But it also says look at target player's hand, so if there's a card that you don't want, you can play this, discard a card from your hand, and draw a card. So there is versatility in that, especially in like black where we might want to reanimate some stuff. There could be something huge that we want to just discard and draw a new card, or it could just be like a land or something, because we can choose anything, right? Well, we could also choose our opponent's lands, which would be kind of mean, but you know, the fact that we have the ability to do that is kind of funny. Though by the time that this card comes down, if they're not already mana screwed, like them drawing a card is just going to make it easier for them to get their mana, so making your opponent discard a land is probably not a good idea. But no, this card seems great. This is an A. Like, it has so much versatility. It seems really interesting. People are probably going to play this in Constructed too. Like, I like this a lot. Cool card. Definitely worth the mana investment in that. Blue, black. All right, next up we have the Is It card. So blue and red, we have Broadside Barrage, which is 1 blue-red for an instant at uncommon. It says Broadside Barrage deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Draw a card, then discard a card. Wow. 3 mana, instant speed, 5 damage is sweet. And then you get just the new Refute ability, which is like, sweet. Hey, here's a good spell. What if you also got to loot? That'd be cool, right? Just loot on top of that. Like, this seems great. This is like a B+. 5 damage is a good chunk. That kills like almost all the Gear Hulks, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, this is sweet. Like, I like this a lot. B+ for this for sure. Moving right along, we have Boosted Sloop, which is really fun to say. It is 1 blue-red for a 3/3 artifact vehicle at uncommon. It has Menace, and whenever you attack, draw a card, then discard a card, and it adds crew 1. Oh. Sweet. Okay, so the last 2 uncommon red-blue cards do let us loot, which is great. It does kind of make that deck that cares about discarding cards maybe a little bit better if you just get to do it for free. That's pretty nice, and you don't have to cycle. This is good. Looting is great. It looks like it flies. It does not fly. That's going to mess me up probably a lot. But it's kind of like a looter scooter, you know? Also, you don't have to attack with this. You just get to attack with anything. So that's also just like kind of... Like, I like these vehicles where they're like kind of enchantments. And then when you like suit them up, they get to do the thing too. But you don't have to attack with it to get the ability. Seems strong. This is like a B. This is a good B. Looting is really strong and limited. Next up, we have Fearless Swashbuckler, which is 1 blue-red for a 3/3 creature fish pirate at rare. It has haste. It says vehicles you control also have haste, and whenever you attack, if a pirate and a vehicle attack this combat, draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards. Alright, so you have really good card selection with this card. Like, 3 mana 3/3 haste, all your vehicles have haste, and you want to attack with this and another vehicle, probably on the turn that you play it. Draw 3, discard 2. This card looks like we're gonna deck ourselves. I feel like we might draw too many cards with this thing. Drawing 3, discarding 2 every turn is a lot. And then if we're triggering some of our discard stuff, that is really strong. Maybe this deck doesn't really care about actually, like, we're probably going to kill our opponent before it even matters. This is pretty cool, but I don't know. Drawing 3 cards seems like it's kind of scary for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah, this card seems great. It's like a B+, though. I don't know if... Like, this does do stuff, but we do have to have this weird, like, pirate and vehicle thing, and then there are a lot of pirates in blue-red, so I don't think we're too worried about finding them. But yeah, this by itself with 1 vehicle, I guess you have to crew it, but yeah. So there's a couple cards, so that's why it's kind of like a B+ range. Next up, we have Captain Howler, Sea Scourge, which is 2 blue-red for a 5/4 legendary creature, shark pirate at rare. It has ward, pay 2 mana, and pay 2 life. So you have to do both of those things. And Captain Howler says, whenever you discard 1 or more cards, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each card discarded this way. Oh, shit, okay. And whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So this is another payoff for discarding cards, and also works really well with the Fearless Swashbuckler, because we are discarding multiple cards to this. This makes our creatures pretty big. I don't know. Like, +2/+0 is pretty nice. This is hard to target. And we draw a card when we hit our opponent. But you do have to make sure that you actually discarded a card before combat to activate the whole thing. So... I still think it's like a B+. I like these cards. These all feel like they're kind of close together as far as like what they're trying to do, and you need a lot of the parts to go together for them to actually be good. But Captain Howler by himself, without being able to discard things, is kind of fine. You know, it's a good body, but hard to target. But yeah, I think that if we're not doing the discard thing, obviously this card is not super great. So B+ for this. Moving right along, we have Rakdos. So that's black-red cards. This is Gastel Thrillseeker. Black-red for a 2/3 creature lizard berserker at uncommon. It has start your engines. And when this creature enters, it deals 1 damage to target opponent and you gain 1 life. And when you have max speed, this creature has death touch and haste. Oh. Okay, this is pretty interesting because it's an aggressive 2-drop that's a 2/3. So it weirdly does let us attack, and it like won't always die or always trade off, which is kind of cool. The best thing about this card is that on turn 2, you start your engines and then immediately ping your opponent. It doesn't even matter if they have blockers or anything. You are going to be at 2 speed by the end of your turn. That is awesome. So just like playing one of these, making sure you're at 2 speed, like right off the bat, like turn 2 of the game, that's really strong, especially in these aggressive decks. And then if you have multiples of this, you just keep pinging your opponent. This is like a B. This is a great card. Late game having death touch haste is late game having death touch and haste. That's good too. We like this card. It is funny, like the body is kind of funny, but the rest of it, that just seems pretty solid. I like this a lot. Next up, we have Apocalypse Runner, which is 2 black-red for a 6/5 artifact vehicle at uncommon. It has an activated ability. You can tap it, and target creature you control with power 2 or less gains lifelink until end turn and can't be blocked this turn. Okay, so that makes sense. So our last card had power 2 or less. It fits with this card. Now we get it. Awkwardly, this has crew 3, so our 2-drop can't crew our Apocalypse Runner, but it does make it that we can gain lifelink and make our 2-drop can't be blocked. That's pretty cool. Though all in all, 4 mana to, like, the lifelink is doing lots of work on this card, I think. Because if it just said target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked until end turn, we've seen that card before. It's pretty fine. You don't have to pay any mana to do it. I do think this is kind of a C, though. I don't know if we're super stoked on this. We'll have to see if if this is the card that's helping us get max speed, then we're like super stoked. But I think there's other ways that we can do it, and this one seems alright. Like it's fine. 6.5 though. 6.5 though. Still, I think C plus is probably where we're sitting at with that. Next up is Far Fortune End Boss, which is 2 black red for a 4/5 legendary creature, human mercenary at rare. It has start your engines. If you haven't started them yet, now they're started. Whenever you attack, Far Fortune deals 1 damage to each opponent. Boom! That is fantastic. Exactly what we're looking for. We're always going to be dealing damage to our opponent, just like smacking them. Wonderful. It also has max speed. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 1 instead. So you're pinging your opponent. Far Fortune is getting you to max speed. And then after that, you just start dealing 2 damage each time you attack them. This is an A minus. A. I like that. Like 4 mana 4/5 that like kills them. It doesn't draw us any cards or do anything like that, but I think this card is scary. I'm gonna give us an A minus here on Far Fortune. Yeah, sweet, super sweet. Next up, we have Coalstoke Gear Hulk. All right, another one of the Gear Hulks. It is 1 black, red for 5/4 artifact creature construct at Mythic Rare. It has Menace and Death Touch. Dangerous. And when this creature enters, put target creature card with mana value 4 or less from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control with a finality counter on it. That creature gains Menace and Death Touch and Haste. At the beginning of your next end step, exile that creature. Okay. So this gets to steal little things from either graveyard, which is really exciting. I always love when we can steal stuff from our opponent's graveyard. It's just so much fun. So 5 mana, reanimate a 4 mana value thing. It has to be a creature. That is important because a lot of these also return artifacts. So let's just remember it's only creatures. And but it just gets Menace and Death Touch, like gets these abilities until end turn, and it gains Haste, and you just go. Okay. Yeah, this is an A. This is sweet. Hopefully it is one of we're going to have a lot of cards in our deck that are less mana value than this. This might be like the top end of our deck if we're playing red-black. And so anything that we had lying around that had like traded off earlier, or maybe your opponent played something sweet, or they discard something, or whatever. I like this a lot. It gets your opponent dead because they have to face down that Death Touch Menace and then this one next turn. Sweet. I like this card. Next up, we have Golgari, which is green and black. We're starting with the Broodheart Engine, which is black-green for an artifact at uncommon. Just a regular artifact. Pretty interesting. It has an ability at the beginning of your upkeep, Surveil 1. Well, that's super. 2 mana, just every upkeep you Surveil 1. So you get to look at the card before you draw it. So you have you don't have to tap it or anything. It just does it. That's already great. We're already super stoked on something like that. But we have another ability because we would have to. I don't think that just the 2 mana Surveil thing would be good enough. 2 black-green, and you can tap it and sacrifice this artifact. Return target creature or vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Boom! This is the reanimator that we want. Like the other ones that we had seen that are like spells and stuff, sure. But this is a 2 mana card that fills your graveyard for you. You get to put in whatever you want. And then turn 4, you can be like, yeah, we got something. Boom. We're going to destroy our opponents. It helps you hit land drops. This card's a B+, baby. B+. So strong. I love this card. This is going to be one of the reasons I'm like, oh my god, we are definitely going into Golgari now because this just came my way. I like this so much. Next up, we have Thundering Broodwagon, which is 2 black, green for a 6/5 artifact vehicle. It has Menace and it has Reach. When this creature enters, destroy target non-land permanent opponent controls with mana value 4 or less. It has Crew 3 and Cycling 2. I mean, this could be one of the cards we want to reanimate with our engine, right? Yeah, if we're just casting this 6 mana to destroy something our opponent controls, I mean, it is a vehicle. It does come down. It has Crew 3, exactly what we want. It blocks well with Reach. It attacks well with Menace. We can cycle it away to reanimate it. All pretty good things. But if we're not able to kind of get the whole thing going, it's fairly expensive and doesn't kill everything. That's going to be the most annoying part about this card, is that you wait till turn 6 and you have to kill a 5-drop, or you have to kill their 7-drop, or something like that. Like, we can't do that. It's also hard to cast because black, black, green, green doesn't always happen. So with that, I think I don't really want to give this a B level card. I think it's just a little bit too expensive. Let's give it a C plus, but if you're reanimating this thing, it's really good. And it seems primed to reanimate, so it might only fit if that's the plan that we're trying to do. All right, next up is Debris Beetle, which is 2 black green for a 6/6 artifact vehicle at rare. It has trample, and says when this vehicle enters, each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life, and it has crew 2. Okay. All right, we got our Siege Rhino back, right? Like, this does that thing. It's a 4-mana 6/6 with trample. Like, crew 2? Crew 2 is so easy and so low. Oh, this thing is brutal. You're running over people. If you ever get to play this more than once, like, that's so much life your opponent lost. This is like, let's do it, baby. I think this is A-. I like this card a lot. Like, sweet. It does stuff when you play it. It's big, it kills. We like it. Next up is Aetherdrift Emerald Radian, which is 3 black, black, green for a 3/3 legendary creature insect druid at rare. It says when Aetherdrift enters, create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each artifact and or creature card in your graveyard. Sorry, what? We get a 1/1 green insect for each artifact and or creature card in our graveyard? It also says whenever another insect you control dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on this freaking creature, and then each opponent loses 1 life. So this is the payoff for milling ourselves. This is what we're talking about. This is so strong. It is 6 mana, it is double black. But, you're getting a million bodies. Like, you're playing The Rock right here. This is The Rock. This is The Rock and his millions. Crazy. Like, even if you play this for 6 mana and you get, what's the worst? Like, 3 insects? It's probably going to be more than that. Like, if you're building your deck right. Definitely more than that, but this is so many bodies. They can chump everything, make this thing huge. Even chumping will just kill your opponent. This is A+. This makes so many bodies. Even 2 bodies is like, that's the top deck that you need to chump, like maybe be able to win the game, you know? And it's just gonna go up from there. Like, this is so sweet. Yeah, A+. Yeah, really good stuff. Next up, we're doing Boros. This is Cloudspire Coordinator. It is red-white for a 3/1 creature human pilot at uncommon. It says when this creature enters, you scry 2. All right, already pretty good. It's obviously a pilot, so it's a 3-mana creature. We get to pilot all the things we want. It also has an activated ability. You can tap it and create X/1/1 colorless pilot creature tokens, where X is the number of mounts and or vehicles that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. And then the pilot tokens have the ability that let them crew things with more power. Yeah. This guy literally just stands there. Like, you play this, you try to look for a vehicle, and you just get to be like, play a vehicle, make a pilot for the vehicle. Play a vehicle, make a pilot for the vehicle. Like, you will always be able to crew your stuff if this is on the battlefield. That is awesome. This is one of those things that, you might start cheating. If you have a couple of these, you might start cheating on your how many creatures are in your deck, because you're just like, we have one of these. I'll play vehicles. We'll make pilots. It'll be fine. We can crew them. It'll be okay. I like this a lot. This is like a B-, I think. Like, it is. I think the Scry 2 gives it a lot of help, right? Like, 2 mana Scry 2, making sure we hit our lands or making sure we're hitting vehicles. That's really great. It does die to like a stiff breeze, but I think it's good. It's going to like spit out a bunch of tokens, and the fact that it does do that is pretty good. So let's just say a B- here, but I like this card. Moving on, we have Cloudspire Sky Cycle, which is 2 black-white for a 2/3 artifact vehicle at uncommon. It has flying. Nice. And it says when this vehicle enters, distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among 1 or 2 other target vehicles and or creatures you control. And then you have crew 1. Okay, I like that we're distributing 2+1/+1 counters among the creatures. I don't like it when it's like put 2 counters on different creatures. So we can put them on the same one. I'm fairly positive. So this thing does give us a lot of stuff. Obviously, we have to have other vehicles and creatures around, but that's not a problem. We're gonna have them. We're gonna be doing stuff with this, and the fact that it has flying and crew 1, which means some of our stupid servo tokens can like crew this up. Super happy with that. Like the crew cost could even be more because we're coming down with counters. That's like crazy to me, but sweet. That's awesome. We're happy with this. We get to beef up some stuff and then get hit max speed in the air. It is 4 mana and the body is kind of small, so there is a little bit of that. So ultimately, I think this is probably just like a C plus, but I like it. You know, I'll be happy to be playing this card. Next up is Explosive Getaway. Is 3 red white for a sorcery at rare. It says exile up to 1 target artifact or creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step, and Explosive Getaway deals 4 damage to each creature. Alright, this is like a selective board wipe. Obviously, we're not blowing up everything, but we're blowing up all the little dudes that are crewing all the vehicles, and you get to save your biggest one. Yeah, I like it. I'm going to give this an A minus. Anything that does things like this, like we for sure are 2, 3, 4 for winning our opponent with this. Obviously, we might lose some of our stuff. So, okay, maybe 4 for 1's a little bit too much. But like, we're for sure getting a 2 for 1 out of the deal. And anything that gives me a 2 for 1, I'm pretty happy about. So, awesome. Yeah. A minus for this thing. Next up is Kaladin Triumph Caster, which is red-white for a 2/3 legendary creature, human pilot at rare. It says mounts and vehicles you control have haste. All right, that's pretty good. Oh wait, no, it has more. Okay, what else does it say? It says whenever a mount you control enters, it becomes saddled until end of turn. Oh, and whenever a vehicle you control enters, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Ah ha ha! Ah ha ha! Ah ha 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 ha! This card's sweet. This is just like value on value. It's just like, hey, by the way, all of your stuff attacks super fast. Oh, and you don't have to tap any of your other attackers to make them actually do the good stuff. They just do it the turn they come into play. So you can attack with all your other creatures. I like this a lot. I did wrestle between like whether it should be a bomb or not. And I think that it is facilitating other things. But by itself, it doesn't do really anything. It doesn't have haste itself. It really just is propping up other cards. I'm going to give this a B+. I do like this a lot. I think things are hitting hard. But yeah, I don't think that it's the kind of savior, I guess, of what we're hoping. But B+ is great. Like, this card's awesome. Next up, we're moving over to the Gruul decks, which is Boom Scholar. 1 red green for a 3/3 creature goblin advisor at uncommon. Exhaust abilities of other permanents you control cost 2 less to activate, and it has an exhaust ability for 4 green red. It says creatures and vehicles you control gain trample until end of turn. Put 2+1/+1 counters on this creature. So 6 mana, all your stuff gains trample, and this becomes a 5/5. And then your other exhaust abilities cost less. Okay, like it seems like a thing. This is probably like a C+. I don't think, like, we're happy if this is out and we get to do the thing. It has a good body and all that. It does give trample, which I think is going to be interesting, or important at least, but yeah, C+. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Next up, we have Rocketeer Boost Buggy, which is red-green for a 3/2 artifact vehicle at uncommon. Whenever this vehicle attacks, create a treasure token. It also has exhaust for 3. It says this vehicle becomes an artifact creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it has crew 1. So being able to sometimes just turn your vehicle into a creature by itself just for the turn, I love that reach. And being able to exhaust to like either, oh, we need it to be able to block this turn, or this is just an extra attacker. And our opponent always has to kind of like worry about that is pretty good. This is one of the vehicles that's kind of sad, though, because most of them have this ability that like just sits on the battlefield and says, oh, when you attack with anybody, you get this stuff. This is like a regular old vehicle where you have to attack with this actual one to get the treasure token. But we do only have crew 1, and it is 2 mana. So that is the recipe for being great. And it does have this nice exhaust thing where it's like 2 mana, you get to play it. If you have nothing else to do, Turn 3, you just get to exhaust it, make it bigger, and you get to attack for the turn for 4. So that's pretty nice. But overall, it still seems like good. I think that probably pushes it over the edge. It's probably like a B minus. I like the fact that it goes 2 into 3. That does feel like a nice little kind of 1-2 punch, you know. But I'm not clamoring to get this card. But if it does come around, it does obviously seem like a card that I would want, as opposed to the Boom Scholar, which seems like, I don't know, you need a lot more going on in your deck to make that card good. This card can just do stuff by itself. Next up, we have Redshift Rocketeer Chief, which is red-green for a 2/3 legendary creature goblin pilot at rare. It has Vigilance. It also has an activated ability, add X mana of any one color, where X is Redshift's power. Spend this mana only to activate abilities. Okay, so this is like a vigilant attacker that's a mana dork just for like exhaust. Just kind of think of it as like it gives you 2 mana for exhaust abilities. So, all right, that's pretty cool. It also has its own exhaust ability. You can pay 10 red green, so that's 12 mana. It says put any number of permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. With Redshift's actual ability, we don't have to tap it for the exhaust, so the 12 mana actually really costs 10 mana, unless we can get some counters or some cool stuff onto Redshift to make it a little bit less expensive for the turn. But putting any number of permanents onto the battlefield from your hand, also instant speed because it's exhaust, yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a little bit of a dream, and it kind of feels like if you get to 10 mana and you have a bunch of like stuff in your hand, how are you holding it so you play it all at the same time? I'm kind of confused on how we actually get to do this. I don't know if it's because we have a Rocketeer boost buggy making a bunch of treasures and stuff, and so we get to ramp it a little bit easier, but I kind of don't like that other part of the ability. I'm basically looking at this card as if it's just like a 2 mana 2/3 vigilance, activate other people's exhaust abilities. It's like a B minus, maybe like a C plus. Redshift is not really that exciting to me. Yeah, I feel bad, but sorry, Redshift, you're fine. I'll definitely play you in decks, so you'll be like a B minus. Yeah. All right, next up is Pyrewood Gear Hulk, which is 2 red, green for a 7/7 artifact creature construct at Mythic. It has Vigilance and Menace. Ooh, buddy, Vigilance, Menace. Oh, 7/7. Oh, that's a big boy. For 6 mana, it's hard to cast, but what are you going to do? It says, whenever this creature enters, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Vigilance and Menace until end of turn. Damage can't be prevented this turn. All right, so the damage can't be prevented is usually doesn't really come into play. Every once in a while it does, and so it's kind of frustrating. It's weird that they keep tacking that onto cards. I don't really know why we keep doing that, but yeah, this body's huge. This is like a territory. You slam this, all your other stuff attacks, and then they have to deal with this thing afterwards. Also, just giving our creatures +2/+2 and Menace, just that is enough to just like kill somebody. So this does really like a board to make it quite a bit better. Otherwise, the ETB does nothing. But this is big. This is an A. I think this is really strong. Next up is our Celestia cards. So Veteran Beast Rider is 1 green-white for a 3/4 creature human knight at uncommon. At the beginning of your end step, untap each creature you control. Huh. Okay. Each creature. That's cool. And then you can pay 2 green-white and you Anthem. So you give your creatures +1/+1 until end turn. It's also at instant speed. It is 4 mana, so it's kind of expensive, but being able to pump your whole team like later is really nice. And being able to crew or saddle a bunch of things and not feel like your defenses are completely down, you get to untap, is awesome. This is also a 3 mana 3/4. Oh, this is like a B. This is great. Like, it has pseudo vigilance itself. And yeah, being able to be like, yeah, sure, I'll saddle for all the extra stuff. No worries. Like, that doesn't matter. The biggest thing with saddling is that you feel like you don't get enough damage in sometimes. And then you can't block. So it's like this weird thing. Yeah, I also think this card would be really fun if you're ever playing Bossry, where you exert it and you get to actually untap it. That sounds kind of fun. So, yeah, this card's sweet. We'll give this a B for sure. Next up is Logharan, Soul of Alakria. It is green-white for a 1/1 legendary creature beast mount at uncommon. It has flying. It says whenever Loggerin attacks while saddled, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target mounts and or vehicles, and then saddle 1. So basically we get to just spread a bunch of +1/+1 counters on a bunch of stuff. They have to be mounts or vehicles, but like just put it on Loggerin. This is super cool. This is the one where it's like you put 1 on Loggerin and then 1 on a vehicle or another mount. And then once you start to get more of them, you can kind of move them around. But at the very worst, this is a 2-mana 1/1 flyer that saddles for nothing. And then, like any creature, basically. And then it just grows every single turn when it attacks. And it has flying. This card's awesome. B+. B+ for this guy. We like you. We love you, Loggerin. Be our friend. All right, next up we have Caradora, Heart of Alakria. It is 2 green, white for a 4/2 legendary creature, human knight at rare. It says when Caradora enters, you may search your library for a mount or vehicle card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And if 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature or vehicle you control, that many +1/+1 counters +1 is put on instead. So if you do 1, you get 2. If you do 2, you get 3. Blah, 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 blah. We know this card. That, like, text is nice to just staple on this other thing that's 4 mana, like 4 mana 4/2. Okay, the body's a little weak, but it does crew a lot of stuff and saddle a lot of things. It also just immediately draws you a card. Your deck is for sure having mounts and vehicles in it. This is just 4 mana, go get another card. Like, draw a card. This is an A. Like, I don't think we're ever going to play this card and not be able to get something. Like, you probably did something wrong in your deck if that's the case. It does not take a big setup cost. The +1/+1 counter thing is just extra flavor. But 4 mana 4/2, even if we just trade off of something, we still drew a card off of it. Yeah. Yep. I like this. I like it a lot. Bright Glass Gearhulk is green, white for a 4/4 artifact creature construct at Mythic. It has First Strike and Trample. Ooh. 4 mana 4/4 First Strike Trample is brutal. That's hard to block. Like, how do you block that thing? I don't even know. It says, when this creature enters, you may search your library for up to 2 artifact, creature, and or enchantment cards with mana value 1 or less. Reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. Okay. It's hard to cast. That's the biggest... Like, we've talked about this with all the Gear Hulks, but this one's pretty hard to cast. It's a 4/4 First Strike Trample. That's the best thing about it. I think that we would kind of want to be able to get some better things out of this. Because of the mana value, or the mana cost, rather, we probably are stuck playing just green and white cards. We don't want to be playing this card in like a 3-color deck. That just seems like a recipe for disaster. And the artifact, creature, and or enchantment cards that all cost 1 mana... we have like 2 or 3 at rare, a couple at common, and a couple at uncommon in those colors. And most of them are kind of like creatures. So we have like Brightfield Glider, which is like that 1 mana 1/1 vigilant white creature. That seems all right. Nesting Bot, that's an okay. It's like it could start your engines, or, you know, but it's still a 1 mana 1/1 that dies into a 1/1. Like, it seems okay. Stampeding Scurryfoot is like a 1 mana 1/1 that could make an elephant later, so that's kind of something. Light Wheel Enhancements, that's kind of cool. It gives us vigilance and +1/+1. I don't know. You probably want to be actually getting a card from it. Like, when you play this, you want to draw a card. Like, that's the most exciting and best part about this. And if most of our targets are kind of like fine, I don't know. I'm not assuming that we're going to be able to get a rare with this. This is the one I like the least, I think. For limited, I think it's like still a good card for sure, and you're gonna put this in your deck if you're green-white. So it's a B, but I don't think it's a bomb. Just because I don't think that the actual cards there are some like, it's like Scrap Compactor and some like colorless cards you can get, but I don't know, man. This looks like it's for constructed to go get, like... We don't have any pacifisms at 1, basically. If we had a pacifism at 1 mana, then you could go, like, stop something from attacking or blocking. This card would be awesome, but we don't. So, it's a B. Maybe a B minus. I'm a little low on it. Tell me if I'm wrong, I guess. But, I don't know. I'd rather be doing the other stuff. Though the body is strong. All right, next up is Sky Serpent Seeker, which is green-blue for a 1/1 creature snake at uncommon. It has flying, it has death touch. It also has exhaust for 4. You can reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal 2 land cards. Until. Okay, that's pretty cool. It says put those land cards onto the battlefield tapped and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. The +1/+1 counter is just to remember that we actually activated the exhaust ability. But yeah, 2 mana 1/1 flying death touch. Just make sure that it's going to trade with something. Like it's trading with a card in their hand or a card on the battlefield. This thing's trading. And that's awesome. It also just stops your opponent from being able to attack for a while. That's great. It's hard to cast on turn 2, but we're not worried about that too much. In blue, I like this because we're just like, either we're holding up a counterspell or something on our opponent's turn. And if that doesn't happen, we just spend 4 mana, go ramp 2 lands, definitely, and be able to play something on turn 6 or 7. Or like, ramp and play a 6-drop or a 7-drop. Like, yeah, okay. This seems pretty sweet. This is like a B+. This seems great. Cool card. Just the fact that it trades with anything. Flying Death Touch. Always happy. Up next, we have Ranger's Aetherhive, which is 1 green-blue for a 3/5 artifact vehicle at uncommon. It has Vigilance. It says whenever you activate an exhaust ability, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying and crew 1. So the Thopters can crew this Aetherhive. This 3/5 vigilant thing for 5? I mean, this is a B+, right? It's either a B+ or, like, you do have to do the exhaust thing. And the Simic deck does want to exhaust a bunch of times and do a bunch of stuff. But this is a great card for that. You're spitting out 1/1s that fly. That's huge. Yeah, B+. This might even be like an A-level card. It seems strong. The reason it's a B+ instead of A, because like you do have to be able to exhaust your creatures, and the fact that you can't reliably do that every single turn means that you get a 1/1 probably every 3rd turn. So it's like, I still think it's really good, and you can build around it. But this is definitely one where you want some of those uncommons that let you like redo the exhaust stuff. But really cool. Next up, we have Sita Varma, Masked Racer, also known as Spitfire. The mana value is green-blue for a 2/3 legendary creature, human rogue at rare. It has exhaust for X green-blue. Put X +1/+1 counters on Sita Varma. Then you may have the base power and toughness of each other creature you control become equal to Sita Varma's power until end of turn. So at the very least, 3 mana, make all of your creatures base power 2/2. That's absolutely atrocious, obviously. But 5 mana, everything has base power 4/4. That's pretty good. And just going up and up from there. Yeah, just making everything like 4/4s from this, that seems sweet. If we made a bunch of the the Thopters from the last card, and we made them a bunch of 4/4s for 5 mana, that's pretty cool. Also, this gets to stick around forever. And this is just such an annoying threat also, because you do get to attack being like, I have like 5-6 mana. I can activate this whenever I want. I like that. I think the exhaust, the like attack with exhaust thing is pretty cool. You do need a bunch of other creatures on the battlefield for this to be great, so I'm going to give this a B. But at the very worst, you at least get to make Sita huge at one point. But yeah, you really want at least 2 other creatures for this to be great. So it's a B. This is a good card. Next up, we have Sabsunin, Luxa Embodied. This is Frog Mommy. Whoo, baby. We got 3 green-blue for a 6/6 legendary creature god at Mythic. It has Reach, Trample at Indestructible, and it can't attack or block unless it has an even number of counters on it. 0 is even. It says at the beginning of your first main phase, put a +1/+1 counter on Sabsunin. Then if it has an odd number of counters on it, draw 2 cards. Okay. All right. This card's crazy, right? Like, it's kind of confusing reading it. You're like, wait, odds and evens, what is all this stuff? And it feels like it's from Strixhaven or whatever, the Quandrix thing. You're just like, oh no, why do I have to do this? All right, but basically it puts the counters. You just need to know when they put the counters on. So it does it at the first main phase. So you play this on your turn. It has 0 counters on it. It can block and it can attack. Obviously, it doesn't have haste, but the big thing is 5 mana, 6/6 trample, reach, like indestructible. This thing is blocking shit the next turn. You get to stabilize the board with this card for 5 mana on the first turn that you play it. So you're super happy with that. And you get more time to figure out how to stabilize the rest of the board, because green-blue is obviously just trying to stabilize and make a bunch of stupid Thopters or exhaust your shit. You're trying to make sure you can actually exhaust all your creatures. I'm sure that's what it is. The next turn it comes around, you draw your card for turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on Sabsunen, because that's the beginning of your first main phase, and then you draw 2 cards because it has 1 counter on it. It can't attack or block this turn, but you drew 2 cards! Like, it's going to be untapped. I don't know how your opponent's going to easily exile this thing because it has indestructible. They could use 6 baubles to do it, or 6, sorry. They could use 3 baubles to do it, but like, it's going to be kind of hard. This slams down, and then your opponents are like, oh, geez, what are we going to do? You only get to attack every other turn, but you're just sitting back, putting counters on it, drawing cards. By the time you actually attack, it's an 8/8 reach trample indestructible. Like, pff, this is the A+. This is an amazing card. It draws you cards. It stabilizes you on the turn that you play it. On the following turns, you're going to have to draw cards to try to figure out how to continue to stabilize, as you weirdly can't attack or block. But I like that they let you do this. It kind of feels like an alchemy thing where it's like you get to attack or block every other turn, but they use counters to make it easier to remember. Also, if you're able to do some shenanigans, you might be able to put counters on it and make it attack or block randomly in the middle of something. I didn't look at all the different instant speed ways to put counters on stuff, so I can't actually tell you if it's great for blocking, but you might be able to suit it up with some other things and be able to attack on a turn that your opponents didn't think that they could attack, basically. But Sabsunen, Froggy Mommy, yeah. Yes. Next up, we are into the multicolored cards, and when I say multicolored, they're all multicolored. So what I meant to say was the cards that have 3 colors or more. We're getting close to the end. We have 3 more cards. The first one is Mimeoplasm, Revered One. So this is X black, green, blue for a 0/0 legendary creature ooze at Mythic. It has, as Mimeoplasm enters, exile up to X creature cards from your graveyard. It enters with 3 +1/+1 counters on it for each creature card exiled this way. Okay, so this is a card that you have to spend a ton of mana to actually play, and you do need a bunch of creatures in your graveyard to be able to do anything, and they have to be creatures for this to actually get any of the counters. It has an activated ability. 2 mana, Mimeoplasm becomes a copy of target creature card exiled with it, except it's a 0/0 and has this ability. So it gets to keep all the counters, so that's something for sure. Pretty important that whatever creature it turns into, it's also huge like the Mimeoplasm was. So this is like 4 mana, it's a 3/3, 5 mana, it's a 6/6, 6 mana, it's a 9/9. It's just getting huge, and then you get to put whatever, like, it doesn't have any keywords around it, like anything like that, but you get to steal any of the ones from the creatures that already died. This seems like a lot of fun. It seems like a cool build around. I don't think that the mana cost is going to be extremely prohibitive because we do have like dual lands at common. I do think that you might just exile your whole graveyard and then this just dies. So there is that. So it's like a B-. I don't think it's terrible, and I definitely want to play it because it seems like a lot of fun. But I don't think this is a bomb. I think it just gets really big and could do a bunch of finicky, funky stuff. But it could also just die and do nothing besides exile your whole graveyard. So, yeah, B-, I'm going to say. I don't think it's a C-level card, but I don't think it's an A either. Next up is Samut, the Driving Force, which is 3 red, green, white for a 4/5 legendary creature, human warrior cleric at rare. It has first strike, vigilance, and haste. It also has start your engines. It says other creatures you control get +X+0, where X is your speed, so at least +1/+0. And it says non-creature spells you cast cost X less to cast, where X is your speed. Non-creature spells? So we just get to play a bunch of vehicles for super cheap? That's awesome. Like 5 mana 4/5 first strike vigilance haste that also attacks and pumps the rest of your team. I don't know. This is pretty sweet. It is 3 colors. And it seems like kind of a deck that wants to be like killing your opponent, but if you already have max speed, this just comes down and gives all your creatures +4/+0. I'm gonna say because of the colors, it's probably like an A-, because most of your aggressive decks won't really want that. But this does shut the door, and it does get to attack itself, and also has first strike. It doesn't get the pump by itself, but you can slam this. You could also slam some other like vehicles. I don't know. This seems pretty sweet. I like an A- for Samut. Definitely awesome. All right, our last card is Loot the Pathfinder. It is 2 green, blue, red for a 2/4 legendary creature, Beast Noble at Mythic. It has double strike, vigilance, and haste, and it has 3 exhaust abilities. All right, most of our cards only have 1. Some of them have 2. This one has 3. So we get to do all of them if we'd like. You get to pay a green and tap Loot to add 3 mana of any one color. All right, so that's like a Dark Ritual. Or a Black Lotus, but you don't have to sacrifice it, so Dark Ritual. Exhaust, you can pay blue to tap it to draw 3 cards. All right, Ancestral Recall, that's pretty cool. And then you could pay red and tap it, and Loot deals 3 damage to any target, so Lightning Bolt. All right, these are all very powerful spells stapled onto this creature. You also get to do all of them right away, because Loot does have haste. So this is a 5 mana 2/4, but you probably want to play this card on turn 6, where you have access to at least one of these, right? But 2/4 double strike vigilance haste, you could just like you do get to play it, you get to attack with it, and then you also get to do any of this other stuff, which is pretty nice. Also, the double strike with the lightning bolt is fun because you get to attack, you get to deal your 2 damage, and then you might be able to just kill it. So you could kill your opponent's 5 toughness creature without them actually dealing any damage to you. So I do like that part. Drawing 3 cards, super, super strong. That's probably the first thing you might want to do on this situation, like, of course, depending. But making sure you get your cards back, that's really important. And your opponent doesn't really want to attack into this. You can do this on, like, their turn. I don't know. There's a lot to like about Loot. Definitely a lot. I'm going to get this an A- as well, just because I think it's really strong. This deck might be more inclined to like sit back and like do some other stuff and be able to exhaust all your things. And if you get to do any of these more than once with that like Elvish Refueler or whatever, if you draw 6 cards off of this, that's going to be insane. So this is super sweet. I like it a lot. It does lots of things, but it is 3 colors. So I will say A- because I like having it, but you don't want to take this super, super early just because of the fact that it's 3 colors. And it's going to be, it's not non-trivial, but yeah. Anyway, folks, that is the end of my set review for multicolored cards. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and follow and subscribe and do all those things for the YouTube channel. It helps a lot, honestly, and it means a lot to me. So I'd really appreciate that. If you're looking for any more videos, I did the rest of the sets. If you haven't watched those yet, check them out. And yeah. Anyway, thank you all very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.